Now to a story Stateline has been covering for many months. This week, the Victorian Ombudsman delivered a report into allegations of improper conduct of councillors at Brimbank Council, and it wasn't pretty. It's a scathing exposé of the goings-on at the Labor-dominated local council and has already claimed its first scalp. The Planning Minister Justin Madden has tonight suspended staff member Hakki Suleyman pending an inquiry into his behaviour. Maura Angle reports.
Many councillors engaged in conduct that was inappropriate, that was not in the interests of their constituents, and can I say was frankly bloody disgraceful.
Shame on you, Sam Davis, you are a disgrace.
A cesspit of Labor mates, and here they are, mates directly connected to the heart of this government and engaged in breaches of public trust.
A yes or a no on a bit of paper in a proper ballot box. All right, that's how it should have been done. Not this bullshit.
So I think that this is democracy at work.
Natalie Suleyman is one of the key figures in the scathing Ombudsman's report. She's a former mayor of Brimbank, and the Ombudsman found she was the leader of the ruling faction at the council. The report found she convinced 5 of her colleagues to direct the CEO to withdraw funds for a sports ground in an attempt to seek revenge against MP George Seats, who had failed to support her pre-selection for the Labor-held seat of Cororoit. The factional fighting led to some damning findings in the report. It states a culture of bullying and intimidation, that the council was generally dysfunctional and marked by infighting and interpersonal conflicts. It identifies the misuse of council funds and equipment and possible breaches of the Local Government Act.
This is obviously the final notice for the council. Any breach of any standard will result in the council being dismissed and an administrator being appointed.
The council gets a second chance following an election late last year, but the Ombudsman's criticism was not limited to Brimbank councillors. It found the council's activities were being influenced by a list of Labor Party MPs and staff. The Ombudsman recommends laws be changed to prevent councillors from having jobs with members of Parliament.
Well, they're not going to be sacked. I mean, in the order of about a dozen and perhaps more people are employed across the political spectrum who are currently employed as either elected officers or ministerial advisors. They will have to make a decision. We will be putting in place legislation later this year that will preclude people from being in that conflictual situation going forward.
The new law won't cover Hakki Suleyman, the father of Natalie Suleyman and one of 2 Brimbank power brokers. He's a former councillor with a criminal record, and he works for the Planning Minister Justin Madden. The report finds he had undue influence over the council.
Not until the Ombudsman's report was released today was I aware of the extent of any of those matters or the investigations in relation to Mr Suleyman.
But the matters were highlighted in Parliament and on Stateline in August last year.
I don't believe there are any matters that warrant consideration, but if people believe that there are matters that warrant consideration or further investigation, then they should refer those to the appropriate agencies and the authorities, the Ombudsman or the Minister for Local Government.
Have you had the discussion with Hakki Suleyman?
I'm not going to go into any details about conversations I do or don't have with my respective staff.
It seems Mr Suleyman's days are numbered. Mr Madden has suspended him pending advice from the President of the Upper House on whether he has breached his code of conduct.
The member has every right, and obviously by asking the President to investigate, he's going to get a proper investigation and report, and in view of the comments made in the Ombudsman's report, perhaps it is the proper thing to do and the right thing to do in the circumstances. But we're very confident that Hakki will be vindicated and he will be able to continue in his chosen profession.
The Ombudsman is also concerned about the influence of other lawbreakers with Labor Party links. It states, "My concern is emphasised by the criminal records of both Dr Andrew Theophanous, brother of Theo and husband of a councillor, and Craig Ottey. I consider that much care needs to be exercised before such persons are involved in or associated with council business. Current parliamentarians are also named as having influence. Mr Suleyman's factional rival George Seats, who has strong connections with the current council majority, while former Minister Theo Theophanous came in for criticism over conflict of interest claims. Senator Stephen Conroy is named, although the Ombudsman found he did not act inappropriately.
I'll be speaking to MPs named in the report. That includes Mr Theophanous. It also includes Mr Seats, Mr Langwilla, and I'll simply be pointing out to them that, of course, it's appropriate for them to lobby on behalf of their constituents, but it is totally inappropriate for them to be exerting or to be perceived to be exerting undue influence over local council decisions.
The government says it will implement every one of the 30 recommendations. The party machine may need to take action as well, with a possible breach of the Electoral Act by the ALP, involving the improper use and distribution of the electoral roll. The government claims the report is proof the Ombudsman has all the powers and legal protection he needs, a claim the opposition rejects.
This report describes a culture of intimidation, a culture of undue influence, breaches of public trust, and it's now very clear why John Brumby doesn't want to establish an independent, broad-based anti-corruption commission in this state.
Maura Angle reporting.